Howdy, roofers, and welcome to Roofer Growth Hacks, the podcast that's dedicated to highlighting those in the roofing industry, learning how they overcame growth challenges with the creative growth hacks, and connecting them with others in the roofing industry. I'm your host, Chris Hunter, founder and chief marketing officer of roofingsites.com. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing for Roofers. All right, Corey. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the Roofer Growth Hacks podcast. Super excited to have you on. You have an amazing entrepreneurial journey that I when we first talked, I really wanted to get you on here and dig into that entrepreneurial journey. So I guess why don't we kick this off? Why don't you tell us about yourself and where you started and where you're at now?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. My name is Corey Combs. I own two roofing companies now, and my journey wasn't always entrepreneurial. I honestly, man, I dropped out of high school. I got into roofing. I was working in a kitchen. So I was 17, dropped out of high school. I was 17 and I was working in a kitchen as a cook. And one of the guys that I worked with, after about a year working in that kitchen, he came to me and he said, "Hey man, I have a way we can make, more money." And I was like, "Well, what is that?" And he's like, "My father-in-law owns a roofing company and we're looking for people." And I was like, "Huh, interesting." So, I went and worked for him, and he was right. I mean, we made a lot more money, but it was awful. The tear off crew that I started on was we were tearing off old ballasted tar and gravel roofs, and that was like our job. So like every day we were just out there on those, giant tar and gravel roofs, scraping those off, cleaning them up. And then the guys would come by behind us and, roof it. And, I'm a white guy in Florida. So like the summers, man, we're just being up there. We're brutal. Like you would come home just covered in, in the black, from the pitch and, all the dust and everything. But then they taught me how to shingle. And so I got onto the residential side, and I learned how to dry in, learned how to shingle, learned how to do all that stuff. And I was making pretty good money, doing that. And, then I just got into general construction. My family started flipping houses and, learned general construction. I went to work for a couple people, learned how to do certain things, learned remodeling, learned all that. And then in about, probably 2007, I was working on my own and just doing remodeling, general construction, all of that stuff. And at the end of 2007, everything kind of hit the skids, and we had that 2008 crash, and there was just no construction work going on in Florida at all. And I ended up working as a salesperson for a friend of mine who had he had a sales and marketing company, and he was doing what Alex Hormozy does. I don't know if you know, he had the gym launch thing. Alex Hormozy does. We were actually doing something similar in 2008, where we would go into gyms and we would run these crazy blitz marketing campaigns, direct mail. We would do guerrilla marketing stuff like in the parking lot of Publix. And the way that it was structured is we would go into these gyms and we had to earn and generate all of the operating capital in the promotion. So my boss would throw in probably $2,000 or $3,000, buy some direct mail, and we would go there and we would drop this direct mail. We would make deals with local businesses. We would give away free gym memberships for them to allow us to stay in hotels, allow us to post up in their parking lot and give away free gym memberships, 2-week passes, stuff like that. And so we would generate this massive amount of leads for the gym. And then we would bring all these people in and we would just sell them. And then after we generated some cash, we would teach the gyms how to sell the gym memberships. And so that's where I really learned sales and marketing and how to sell and objection handling, like all of that stuff. The guy I worked for was a scumbag, but he was a really, really good salesperson. He understood the fundamentals of sales at a really deep level.
Yeah.
And so when the construction market started to recover, I no longer had a tool belt on, and I worked for a large custom home builder as one of their project managers, and then inevitably got into doing, I was their production manager. And after I worked as their production manager, I went to another exteriors company, and I worked as their production, their production department head. It was, at the time, it was probably about a $12 million company. And so we did a lot of like remodeling and roofing and all that stuff. And then after that, I wanted to get back into sales. And so I went to work for another remodeling company and sold roofing. And that was about 2012. In my first year in sales, I sold $1 million, and the company was like, holy shit, like nobody had ever done that. Right.
Yeah.
And then, the next years, I kept just, producing. And in 2014, I did a $2.6 million year, and the company was just like, dude, I mean, nobody's ever done this. And so, I stayed with that company for a while. It was a good gig until it wasn't. The owner started, revamping our commissions, doing all the stuff that they do. And I worked with this woman. So this was in 2017. And I worked with this woman who she was an architect, and she was from Florida as well. And by the way, that was up in Buffalo, New York, the company I worked for. And she's like, why aren't you doing this on your own? She's like, you know this business really, really well. You're good at sales. You know the technical side of it really well. You should be working on your own. These are your money earning years. And so I took her advice, and I spent all of 2017 studying, getting my licenses, for Florida and all that stuff. And then in 2018, I launched my own businesses, and which, I never really considered working for myself. I was always just an employee, and I was always a good employee. I was always a self-starter. I always did well at my jobs. I was always a valuable employee. And it wasn't until she got a hold of me and she kept telling me like, look, you should do this on your own. You should do this on your own.
Yeah.
And I'm not, one of the reasons I think I did good, really well in sales is I'm not risk averse. Like, I'm a risk taker. I'm fine with it. Right. And I also knew the business well enough to really answer people's questions and walk them through the journey and, be really detailed and good with them. And I also understood how to sell. I understood the buying triggers. I understood objections. I understood all that stuff. And so I said, why not, man? And so I started SouthShore had $5,000 in the bank, and I had to make it work. So
right.
I started SouthShore, and I went out, and I'm from Florida. I was living at Buffalo at the time, and I moved back to Florida, and I started door knocking. I just started going out and knocking doors, and I thought I was going to get into the insurance side of it because it was kind of hot. It was really hot at the time.
Yeah.
But what I figured out pretty quickly was that there was a certain segment of the market in Tampa that wasn't being served, and that was the retail market, because everybody was doing insurance and storm restoration. So I started knocking doors. I actually poached quite a few jobs from other contractors that weren't servicing their clients. And I just started earning money and taking that money and putting it into marketing and building my marketing side of things. And so I really built it grassroots. And then it took off like after the first year, because nobody was spending money on marketing and Google. LSA had just launched in Tampa, and nobody knew about it. And the guy that I was working for marketing knew about it. I mean, we were just getting crazy amounts of leads, and we just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And so year 4, we were at 8 figures, So that's kind of my entrepreneurial journey. And then I acquired another company, a local company, been in business since 1982. Great brand, long established history, good price. And so I acquired that one, and I've 10x their revenue in 2 years. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So let's dig into that, because that's pretty cool. Like buying a company and then 10xing it is just amazing, right?
Yeah.
So what were the first things that you did when you looked at it and you said, I'm going to buy this company and, these are the things that I'm going to do?
Honestly, it wasn't even really on my radar to buy another company. But I had hired a fractional CFO, and we were talking about getting prepared to sell. And I had this number in mind that would make sense to me to sell, because, I was making money, making good money off of the companies or off my company, more money than I've ever made in my life. And, it didn't make sense to me to take anything other than a certain number if I sold, because we had taxes and, everything you have to pay when you sell your company. And he said, well, I don't know how quickly we're going to be able to get you there, because here's where you are in your valuation. Have you thought about buying another company? And it turns out, somebody we both knew was the broker for this other company. I said, yeah, I'll take a look at it. So anyway, it seemed like the right move. And even just acquiring the company, it got me pretty close to that valuation that I needed, even if I didn't do a whole lot. And I knew that I could grow the company. So, and they had a long established, it started in 1982. And so they had a lot of past clients. They had a good name in the community and all that stuff. And so I knew I could leverage that. Even if we just added, let's say, $1 million of top line revenue to the company at a 10 or 12% net profit on the end, on the EBITDA, then I knew that it would get us where we really needed to be. And I knew I could probably do that pretty easily because they didn't market at all.
Yeah.
And so that's why I bought it. That was the strategy. And, we launched marketing and, just kind of did what we did and brought some salespeople in there, and just, it just kind of organically grew. And then we had a hurricane hit, and it just, bananas. Yeah. Every past customer that they had for 42 years or whatever called because they had some sort of problem. So some of it was luck, but I had the infrastructure in place. I basically ran it as an extension of the other company. We shared services, and I brought some people in, and we just duplicated everything that had been successful in SouthShore from an operations standpoint, and it worked out pretty well.
Are there certain things that you were able to use in both of the companies then, maybe a call center or something like that?
Well, we kept the brand intact, meaning I didn't combine them at all. Like we kept the brands autonomous. So, and we don't use call centers or anything. We use traditional marketing channels, Google, Facebook, digital, all that stuff. Built its own website, all of that. Where we really shared services is on the administrative side. So, my bookkeeper, my attorneys, my CFO, all those shared services, office space, labor was another big one. That worked out really well. And, and then the training, that we had already in place for the sales team, those processes, so all of these tools that we had in place, I wouldn't necessarily say they were shared services where we bought things in bulk, and because of that we got discounts. It was more about just duplicating what worked. And then the other thing that I did that I think was pretty cool, rather than forming a whole other production department, instead of doing that, I took my production manager and I moved her up into a place where she managed both companies. And then I hired assistants or I elevated assistants under each company to assist her so that we could just run production from one office, from one standpoint. And that worked out really, really well.
So what I'm gathering, they're both in the same market. Both of the companies are in the same market.
Correct.
So like, do you find that you compete against each other though? For leads, especially?
Yeah, that's the really interesting thing is we were worried about that, but no, it didn't work out like that. There was one time that I remember where, because we had sales meetings together. We had sales meetings from Jerry's and SouthShore. We all met together. We all trained together. We all did all the same stuff together. And there was one time that I remember that SouthShore and Jerry's both went in to estimate and compete at the same job. And they were like, man, this is bullshit. And I'm like, the better person's going to win here. Right. So,
right.
It is a true, it was a true testament to, two heavyweights not, duking it out. But no, for some reason, the brand identity is a little bit different. The type of projects that we go after are a little bit different. And so we haven't had that issue from a competition standpoint.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
So and I'm going to dig in on the marketing side of things here, right? But don't you, and this is just me asking, but if you're both running, let's say, pay-per-click ads, do you not worry that you're driving your own costs up for those ads? Or do you like schedule certain times that they run? Or how do you treat that?
That is a great question. And first of all, it comes down to really transparency in knowing on your lead and your marketing side what happens all the way down the funnel. So from when the lead's actually generated to what happens, is it actually a qualified lead? Does it hit your CRM? And then what happens downstream in your CRM? So you can really take a look at is your marketing working? Are the conversions working? All of those things. And what I found was I was using the same marketing company for both companies. Mm-hmm. And rather than leaving that with them, I took the marketing over for Jerry's because I was concerned about that, and I wanted to have autonomy and control over that very thing. And what we found, or what I've found, is working with my current marketing company and me having done the, let's say, Google stuff, because that's the big one, right? That's the one we're really talking about here is competing on Google. We ended up changing our ad sets and our ad copy and the people that we were going after and how we presented Jerry's as a company and then how we presented SouthShore as a company. And I don't want to say that we devalued Jerry's in any way, but we appealed more towards value, not cost, right? Not being cheap, but value. And I actually drove my lead cost down on Jerry's. My per lead cost, I actually drove that down pretty significantly. And so what I was able to do then is go back to my marketing company and say, hey, bro, we were able to drive this, per lead cost down from, 320 to just over 200. We've got to figure out how to do that here with SouthShore. And so that's what we've been working on. And we've been able to do that. We started to, one of the problems that we had with SouthShore is we had done so much SEO and like organic, and we had invested so much time, effort, and money in all of that stuff. And then when and that was all tied to how the ads worked and where we were driving people, and it was a whole ecosystem loop that we were trying to build. And what happened when they had that last massive update with Google, it really hurt a lot of that stuff and dropped our rankings and just kicked us out of a lot of the stuff we were doing really well in. So we're revamping that strategy now. for South Shore. The good thing about Jerry's is I was able to be a lot more nimble with it because we didn't have all of that stuff built out and we didn't have all those other things to consider. And so it was easy for me to just scrap everything and start over. It's much more difficult on the South Shore side because we had spent so much time, effort, and money on doing all of those other things.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of started talking into it, but, and I just know this because, we've talked before, you've built a tool that really helps you on the marketing side of things to know what's working and not working. Right.
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
I've been trying to solve this problem since I started paying for marketing, and my marketing company and I'm just like every other contractor. As soon as my revenue doesn't seem to match up with what my ad spend is, now all of a sudden I'm going back to my marketing company in a panic, and I'm like, "Hey man, what's going on? Like, why aren't these things converting? We're not getting da da da." And he's like, "Hang on." We would sit there for hours and hours and do a lead to what's happened in the CRM audit, right? And we would go and we'd find all these, and we like, okay, these sold, these didn't, these are saying, it was arduous and painful.
Yeah.
And so for years, I've been trying to solve the problem. I've done it like most people. We pull reports out of the CRM. We pull reports out of what converts, or, go high level or whatever. We try to do our best to match the data, figure out the attribution, and then go in and match it to the CRM. And the way that we were doing that was with basic conversion rates of everything and formulas in a Google sheet, right? And I literally paid somebody that was for their full-time job was doing commissions, doing job cap outs, and pulling all that data out of the CRM and putting it in a spreadsheet. So we had some basic conversion data. So I paid somebody over $4,000 a month to do all that stuff, right? And that was just their paycheck. And that's not, what I was paying in payroll taxes and workers' comp insurance and all that stuff. So probably closer to $4,500 to $4,700 a month I'm paying to try to get that data where we can see that. But the insights still were not very clear because there was a bunch of gaps in the information. And so the last 2 years, what we've tried to build and what we actually built is we figured out a way to connect our lead tracking. So like what converts or go high level or whatever, extract all the data out of there, and then extract all the data out of the CRM that we need and check what's going on with that. Well, first it presents the data from the marketing tracking. So it presents the data in, hey, was this a lead that came in? Yes. Was it an actual good lead? Yes or no? If it wasn't a good lead, why? What happened? And then did that lead make it into the CRM? Yes or no? And then we have some verification steps that we do between the lead source, and the CRM, and the first stage of the CRM, which is, did it get into the CRM as a lead? Can we match the phone numbers? Can we match the attribution, et cetera? And then what it does is it follows that lead that actually got into the CRM all the way down the sales funnel to either, was it a lost job, or did it turn into a sale?
Wow. Yeah. And that's super cool because, there's really nothing out there like that, right?
No,
as I'm sure,
there's not.
Which is why you built it.
Yeah.
And that's something that obviously on the marketing side of things that I've fought for the past 20 years is, trying to figure out where things are coming and what's converting,
Yeah.
So I think that's super cool. Do you think that helped so let me ask, is that what helped drive the cost down on per lead, right? With Jerry's marketing, or is that because you were able to granularly see things, is that what helped with driving that lead cost down?
Yeah, you're pointing at two fundamental issues that us as contractors have when it comes to the relationship that we have with our marketing company, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first fundamental issue that you mentioned is there can be an inherent conflict between the marketing company and the contractor and the quality of leads. And what I mean by the quality of leads is, not only the volume, but the conversion from the opportunity to actually have that as a job that we can potentially sell, right? And you and I both know from years of digging into this data, just because a lead shows up on your lead tracking, it doesn't necessarily mean A, that it was quality, or B, that it converted into the CRM for an opportunity for the company to sell. Right. The other really big challenge is, and I face this, there's no clarity. There's no clarity anywhere in order to be able to parse that out in a real meaningful way, unless you spend a bunch of time going through, and nobody's got time for that. Like, I was very fortunate, like my marketing guy, who I've known for years, because he cared about me, he would spend the time with me. But most people aren't doing that, and they don't have the time to do it. Yeah. So if there's no clarity and there's no transparency on what's truly happening with those quote unquote leads, right? Yeah. Then you can't really make decisions on where you're going to put your money and whether or not you need to make some changes in your ad space and your copy and your, all of those things. So because of that, it's much harder to make those decisions. And you guys on the marketing side, you're pulling up the lead tracking, you're pulling up all those things, and you're looking at, okay, this ad, it's converting, right? I mean, people are clicking through and it's converting. Great. Yeah. That's a success for you. Right. But the next piece of that is, okay, it's clicking through and it's converting. Great, right? But are these people actually our ideal customer or potential customer with the type of projects that they're converting through to what we're considering a qualified lead? And the only way we're going to know that is if they convert into our CRM as a potential job for us to bid, right? Yeah. So that's the step right there that I think needs to happen so we can truly get a real clear picture on if that's a quality lead or not. So to answer your question, yes, it has very much informed our ad copy and how we're presenting these ads. Because if we're attracting a certain type of potential customer and they're not actually converting into opportunities for us, even though they truly are a lead, right? Then we've got to figure out what it is, and we've got to tweak something. The other big challenge that I've had to learn this over the last year. A lot of times contractors don't know what to do with that information, and they don't know how to have those conversations with the marketing company. Right. So if we can provide that data to the marketing company and the marketing company can look at it and say, I understand, because you guys understand that side of it. The contractor might not on the level that you do. Right. And so if you have this data and you can look and see real time what's happening, now you can look back and say, I see this ad is converting and clicking through, but it's not actually turning into opportunities for you guys. So now I've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out why, and we can make those changes. 100%. Yeah. I mean, because if you could get all the way granular, all the way down to what let's talk pay-per-click, right? So what ad campaign, what ad group and what, keyword that person came in on, and tie that in with the amount that was sold on the job too, and how profitable that job, because that's the other side of things, right? Is this job versus this job more profitable
to you, the roofer, well, I'm going to focus on that. Right. And yeah, absolutely. So 100%. And so we were talking before, you're going to be releasing this tool here pretty soon, right? In January-ish, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. We're beta testing. We're beta testing it right now. So we have several companies that we're beta testing it with, and which has been good because we've figured out there's a few things that we needed to kind of tweak in the first version. We'll have what I'll call our minimum viable product ready to go in January that we're going to release to market. But we already have, we have 2 version developments that we're working on already that we saw would really help contractors downstream with more valuable insights. And one of them is, the true financial insights. So really getting down to distilling the numbers for a contractor so they can see what their ROI is overall on what they spend versus their revenue, what their percentage of revenue they're spending on their true marketing costs, and then breaking down each sales rep on what we're spending on each sales rep and what their ratio is to what they're producing, and are they profitable for you based on what you're spending. And so there's a lot of math in there, and we've mapped all of that out. And so we're building that right now. The first version that we're releasing, though, will follow that lead source all the way down the funnel to either sold or lost. And so it'll have the opportunities. So how much you got estimated off of that lead source and how much you sold off of that lead source. So if you're looking at Google PPC, we follow those PPC ads all the way down the funnel, and then we aggregate the total of estimated jobs and the total of sold jobs, so you can really see if it's a valuable lead or not. The piece we're missing is how much you spent, and so we'll have that piece in there, so you'll be able to see and then we'll have ratios or percentages for the company owners so they can see all that.
Love that.
Yeah.
And are you going to include offline type marketing in all of those totals as well?
Absolutely. The key piece of this is having some sort of lead tracking in the beginning. So whether you use What Converts, Call Rail, Go High Level, I know you encourage your clients to have tracking numbers on everything they do. So whether they run TV ads, whether they have billboards, whether they use bus benches, whatever it is, you want to put a tracking number on there so you can have some lead attribution for where that lead came from. The really cool thing that we did is, you and I both know it's very hard to get first attribution from like billboards or bus benches or whatever, because when somebody sees your ad constantly, well, what's the first thing they do when they're ready to call you?
Yeah, they're going to go to your website.
They're going to go to your website, or they're going to Google you, right? I mean, most of the time they're going to Google you. They're going to see whatever pops up first. They're going to click on that, call now. They're going to click on that, right? Yeah. So now that lead comes through in the lead tracking as a Google lead, because they don't call off your phone number, tracking number that's on the advertisement.
Right.
But what we did was that lead comes through your Google lead tracking. It shows up in What Converts or Go High Level as a Google lead, but they actually called into your office. And so your admin answers the call. They ask, hey, where'd you hear about us? And they're like, oh, I see your billboard every day. Great. So now there's a billboard attribution in the CRM. So what we do is we look at the attribution. So we match the phone number. We look at the attribution of where the lead came from, which would be Google. And then we look at the CRM attribution, and we say, okay, there's a conflict here, right? But we're going to give priority attribution to the billboard. So that's going to log as a billboard lead and not a Google lead.
Love that. because it should be able to be overwritten, right, by whoever's answering the phones there.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Parsing and organizing the data has been the biggest challenge, because in the CRM, there's infinite, there's infinite ways that people can structure their CRM. There's infinite terminology that they can put in their CRM. And it's almost hard. It's hard to control for every variation that every contractor is going to use. And so that was the biggest challenge that we figured out, was how to pull out the data, how to organize the data, and how to put it into our tool so that there's uniformity across, what people are calling it, so we can come up with standard nomenclature, standard terminology that everybody will understand. So taking this infinite number of variables and controlling them was one of the biggest challenges, but we got it figured out, man.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, because one of the common things that I run up against is, like in Job Nimbus, they call anything that goes into Job Nimbus a lead, right? And typically when you put something into Job Nimbus, it's most likely going to be an appointment, right? So I had clients, and this was a while back, that was, they kept calling, well, they're working the leads. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Eventually I had to ask, and it was because they were calling an appointment a lead. And I'm like, well, no, that's an appointment, right? In your sales funnel, that's a lead is anyone who's raised their hands, right?
Yep.
We were talking the same thing, but not really the same thing, So once we got past that and got into, hey, this is actually an appointment, right? And the leads are falling through the cracks because of X, Y, and Z. Then it started kind of clicking, a little more down the road. So,
there's some tools out there, there's Searchlight's one of them, right? So, I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's some tools out there that do a very small variation of what we're doing, and they're only telling a small piece of the story.
Yeah.
For us, I know people that use almost every CRM in the contracting space, JobTread, Job Nimbus, AccuLinks, what's the one you just mentioned? Job Nimbus, and so everybody has this same challenge and the same problem. And the CRM's reporting are notoriously terrible. Mm-hmm. So even if you can extract the data you need out of your CRM, which is almost impossible on all of them, there's no way to actually accumulate, organize, and present everything that you need to see, right? And so I think that's really where the magic happens for us. And then the second piece of it is some contractors may not, they might get the information, but they may not know how to best use the information.
Right.
And so that's another piece of what we're doing, is each stage or each conversion, if it's not healthy, we have insights on what's going on and how to improve it. And then to take a step further, how to have the conversations and meetings with your team on how to improve these things.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've got to be able to take action on anything, so let's going back to your roofing company. If you hadn't taken action on, driving that cost per lead down, right, on knowing exactly which channel is working and not working, or what campaign is working and not working, right, or what keywords, anything like that, then there's no way to improve, right? If you don't actually take the action. It's like, saying you're going to go on a diet and not actually doing it, right? And
Right.
right,
Yeah.
something like that, right? Or saying, getting a gym membership and not actually going to the gym,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So
Yeah, the challenge. So I've done some consulting for contractors and sales training, consulting. I've done some stuff with roofer where we did the roofer rise and spoke to contractors and all that stuff. And one of the things I did with them was teach them how to create a winning presentation for inside the home and how to leverage that to sell more.
Yeah.
And so I did this, presentation, like here's how you take your company and here's how you need to understand how to present the information to the homeowner and, all of this stuff. Like, here's the framework on how to build out a really great presentation at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And you know what? The number one question that I always got, no matter who I talked to with these contractors that we were trying to help, you know what the number one question was?
What's that?
Hey, can I have yours?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
can you shortcut this for me?
Yeah, you use the gym membership analogy, right? It's like, look, I can buy you a membership and I can show you how to use all the equipment. Okay. The missing piece has always been building the workout program, so to speak, right? And so they wanted me to work out for them, which I'm like, I can't work out for you. I can't. You have to actually go to the gym and work out and do all that stuff.
Right.
But what I realized is implementation and execution is generally the biggest challenge for a lot of these people because it's new. Nobody's taught them how to do it.
Right.
And nobody's kind of like walked them through. And so it's intimidating. And so my goal here was to create something where I could think through all of these things for them and give them that as best as I can, sort of that walking them down the path to success with them rather than just throwing some data at them and say, here, figure it out.
Yeah. And I like that kind of model. Obviously that's where I'm at, and that's done with you, but done for you, right? Type service. So yeah. All right. So let's switch gears a tiny bit here. Right.
Okay.
So I had a whole list of questions. I think I'm just going to throw them out just because we've, had some really good talks here. All right. So let's just go with this one. You've been in the industry a really long time, right? What are some trends that you're seeing? What do we need to be paying attention to? What can roofers that are listening to this or watching this on YouTube later, what should they be looking at right now?
And we could do a whole podcast on this, but I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it brief and on point. When I started in roofing, it was all direct to consumer retail stuff. Meaning there wasn't like the insurance jobs were very few and far between. Even living in Florida, it just wasn't the standard in the industry, and that changed. Insurance work became a standard in the industry, and now I think people are seeing, and I'm not the doom and gloom, like, oh, insurance is, is never, nobody's ever going to be doing insurance. I'm not that doom and gloom on that, even though we're a retail company. I think what you're going to see is there's going to be less of that on the scale that you see it now.
Okay.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, insurance companies are not going to continue to lose money. It's just not, they're not going to do it. They're for profit, and they're starting to figure that out. And so I think there's going to be less of that. So understanding how to, market and get in front of customers and all of that stuff is already starting to have a comeback, and people are talking about this more than they have in the years past because door knocking and filing insurance claims was kind of the like primary, method people were talking about. And I'm not saying that's going to go away at all. That's not what I'm saying. You're going to have a blended set of skill sets, right? So you're going to have to understand, I think, both and know how to leverage and utilize both. I also think seeing what's happening with PE come into the industry and some of the large acquisitions that have happened on the supplier and distributor side is signaling that there's going to be some serious changes on how business is done with the going direct to consumer. There are some that are trying to help contractors market better. So their focus is on lead generation and marketing to help their contractors. So they become sticky to contractors, meaning they're going to be tied to their leads and their revenue. And because of that, they're going to buy more materials for them. So some of them are focusing on that. I think some of them are focusing on cutting out the contractor from the standpoint of going to the customer directly. So like Home Depot, for an example, I think they're going to try to revamp their in-home sales, and then the contractor's just going to be the labor side of it. And so because of all these things coming into the market, there's going to be efficiencies, there's going to be competitions, there's going to be all of these things jockeying. So I think margins are going to suffer in the market for a few years. I think this, selling at 40 and 50% margins, I think those days are coming to an end. And because of that, I think PE is really going to struggle. We're seeing it in our market. I love it when I know these PE-backed companies or acquired companies we're selling against them, because we look like a gem to the homeowner because we're $200 to $300 cheaper per square, and we're giving them the same experience and the same service as these other companies. So there's a lot of changes in the industry, and I think a lot of everybody's trying to figure out how the industry is going to move and all of these things. And we're seeing prices drop right now in our market pretty substantially because there's less people buying right now. There's a lot of competition in the market. And so some prices are dropping. And I know PE in my market is struggling because I'm watching them fire everybody, right? And they're trying to operate more efficiently. And so, I just think that's some of the big changes that are going to happen. And so we're, as roofers and company owners, we're going to have to know where all of our dollars are spent, because you're getting a lot of people in the industry that are not contractors, they're not roofers, they're business people, and they know how to squeeze the juice out of the businesses, and they know how to squeeze the juice out of the markets. And if we don't learn that and we don't understand that, it's going to be really tough for us to operate.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And a lot of it comes down to, even what you started out this whole conversation with is dropping that cost per lead down as much as you possibly can. Right. Because that's in my mind, the marketing is the tip of the spear for everything. Yeah. And, if you're paying too much per lead, right, and your cost per acquisition is really high, then it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. That can be the kiss of death too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So optimizing that as much as you possibly can is really the key, I think. Yeah. So
the days of just falling ass backwards into money in the roofing industry, I think, are over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, dude, this has been absolute fire, man. Right. Let's pause here for just a second for a message from our sponsor, roofingsites.com. Since 2018, roofingsites.com has helped roofers double their sales by getting their marketing right using the 4R roofing marketing system. If you're a roofing company owner wanting to grow your business, be sure to go to roofingsites.com and sign up for a roofing marketing strategy session with me. Okay, we're back for the lightning round, Corey. All right, we have one rule here, one rule only. You have 1 minute or less to answer each of these questions. You ready?
Got it.
Awesome. Okay, so first question is, what is your favorite personal hack? This can be a book, it could be, whatever hack, a podcast, anything that our audience can use in their personal life.
You have to take care of yourself, and you have to take care of your mental, spiritual, and emotional self if you're going to run any sort of meaningful company where you're going to affect positive change in your employees, the people you service, and downstream to, the umbrella of people that you're looking to interact with on a daily basis with your company. Self-pity is the most useless emotion. Regret, all of those things do nothing, but they just kill us. So we have to take care of ourselves spiritually, emotionally, and physically if we're going to be effective and successful.
Love that. Absolutely love that. All right. Next question. What is your favorite business hack? Again, this could be a book. It could be podcast, whatever. Anything goes here.
My favorite business hack now has been workshopping with ChatGPT. There's a lot of things that we want to do, and there's a lot of changes we want to make in our company. And so what I love to do is I like to put a lot of these things that like processes and, documents and all this stuff into ChatGPT. I load it in there and I just workshop. I turn on the microphone. I talk to ChatGPT. I say, hey, this is what we want to do based on this, and this. Give me some ideas, right? And it's pretty interesting what happens. You'll find a lot of, excuse my language, you'll find a lot of horse shit that ChatGPT will spit out, but you'll get some gold nuggets some threads you can pull out and you can write down, and then you can really start to develop that thread and work into some new things for your business. So that's been my new favorite hack. And a friend of mine, John Bros, he taught me that.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. And I honestly have been gravitating more towards Claude lately. And I've personally trained it on me, my company, my goals, my everything, like my employees, Colby scores, all that kind of stuff. Everything is in my master prompt is what I call it. And it's inside of Claude, and it knows absolutely everything there is to know about me. So that would be my hack.
And I know we don't have a minute, but you have to be careful, because if you don't really know the information well and how it all ties together, you can get led down a path that might not be the right one. And it might seem right, but it's not. So you have to be careful with that. But that's brilliant. Very cool.
Yeah. And so complete sidetrack, and this might or might not make it into the lightning round stuff, but another hack for you to take away on this is also inside of, and you could do this as a custom GPT inside of ChatGPT, or you can do it as a project inside of Claude, right? Either one. All right. But have it be your board of directors, right? You were talking how you workshop, but act as Alex Hormozy, whoever that you want on your board of directors, and bounce ideas off of that.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah. Really cool.
Okay. Next question. What's the best advice that you've ever been given? And you get bonus points here on if you let us know how you actually applied it.
Love that. Best advice I've ever been given, business advice I've ever been giving, is dig the well before you need the water. And the way that I use that is I try to look at things from what can happen. So if we have something that's working right now, what can happen if it stops working? And what's my next move if this stops working? And if you try to forecast things as best as possible, or think about what's next. So let's say you put a process into your company, okay? And this process is solving a problem and it starts to work. You need to look at what's the next step of this. And you need to build that out before you need it, because when processes break, the worst thing you can do is be reactive to it, because that's when the chaos happens. And
Right.
so I think if you can adopt that philosophy in your business, dig the well before you need the water, you'll save yourself a lot of trying to catch up and mitigate things that happen and react to them, and you'll be much better at being proactive.
Love that. Absolutely love that, man. That is a gold nugget right there. Well, all right, here's the next question. How can the Roofer Growth Hacks family get in touch with you? How can we support you and encourage you and possibly even buy into your software moving forward?
You can email me at Corey, Corey, at ssrflorida.com. And that's Sam Robert, Florida spelled out.com.
Awesome. Love that. Corey, thank you so much for coming on here, man. This has been one of my favorite episodes that I've ever recorded. So thanks so much for sharing everything that you have here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You did a good job at asking the right questions and leading us down a good path, man.
That's cool. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, man.
All right. Appreciate you.
I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, roofingsites.com. Since 2018, roofingsites.com has helped roofers double their sales by getting their marketing right using the 4R roofing marketing system. If you're a roofing company owner wanting to grow your business, be sure to go to roofingsites.com and sign up for a roofing marketing strategy session with me. Also, this past year, I published my book, The Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing for Roofers. If you're a roofing company owner and you don't have this book in your hands, I will send you a free digital copy. Just go to go.roofingsites.com and I'll send you a free copy of my book. Well, roofers, join me next time when we connect with another great roofing entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter. Thanks and gig 'em.